welcome to Check Out This Guy, where we check out ourselves to check out the guys that we made in the past and be like, there's something cooking there. And the cooking was actually super gay. I'm Katra, and my pronouns are they, he, she.
Hi, I'm Izzy, and my pronouns are whatever you want to call me. I don't know. It's a day.
Hey nerds, I'm Emery. Pronouns are they, she, he.
I'm Morg. Pronouns are they, he, and what is gay and what is being turned gay by your OCs really mean?
Who could say?
Yeah.
That's what we're here to figure out today, I think.
Yeah, I thought you were going to tell me.
What came first, the chicken or the egg, the gay OC, or me being ace as fuck?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess let's get into it. For me in particular, I figured out that I was ace, and then I figured out that I was trans, and then I figured out all my OCs were ace and trans. So I don't think there's any particular OC that led me to any revelation, but you know, now that I'm here, I'm just like, hell yeah, I have all these cool transsexual aces in my roster, and I like them. I like having these.
Hell yeah. I think it was sort of the same for me. I had OCs. And then I had a lot of time to think. And I looked at my OCs and like, a lot of these are going through times in which their bodies change because they despise what they are perceived as. Interesting. Let's not think about that for a very, very long time. And then I had to think about it. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm trans actually, as well as ace. That's how that one went.
Guess that, like, sorry, I just got confused, like, how much I should go into this now, / if we want to talk specifics, but, I guess...
We're free for a minute.
Okay.
We go wherever we feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, because we could talk about, like, how getting into, like, / fanfiction and, like, making OCs for that, or yaoi, had made me go, like, oh, wait, I'm not picturing, you know, why am I drawn to these boys? Why am I drawn to gayness? But also, why am I, like, kind of... I was like, oh no, am I freaked out by women because I'm a misogynist? Oh no. And then I was like, oh no, it's just because I'm projecting my insecurities about my body. I see. I understand.
The old Fujoshi to Transmask pipeline. I'm saluting.
Insane, huh, that one?
Yeah.
So I'm the one over here, unless you had more to add more.
Not at the moment,
okay.
But I just wanted to say I'm a stereotype. It's fine.
So I was purposely, like, waiting over here because I'm the one with the very different experience. See, what had happened was... I was in a tabletop game with Emmy, and then I guested on Ghost Gaze. And then the three of y'all are like, yeah, that Izzy. She's trans. And I'm over here sitting there like, I never said that.
Did we specifically say you were trans, or did you just say that?
No, you didn't. But
I was like, we did not do that.
No.
But we did.
No, I'm saying it for the short. I'm saying it for the sake of brevity.
Yeah, I think the actual thing was that, like,
yes.
when Max came on, we introduced him as our first cishet guest, implying
Correct.
that you were not.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
He implied some gender there.
Yeah. So no, I'm saying it that way because I think it's really funny to say it that way.
I think I'm just very sensitive because I'm like, in college, I, like, tried to, like, be force is very strong, but I tried to get someone out of the closet too soon.
Uh-huh.
I just get very, like, I'm like, oh no, did I do
Oh.
that to Izzy?
No, y'all actually helped me to be forced to confront some things because let's face it, like in hindsight, I can look back at my history of OCs and go, oh, there were some fucking signs, weren't there?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, playing as Xenu was just like, oh, everyone going, oh, that's the obvious trans metaphor. I'm like, I didn't know that.
By everyone, I think you mean me in particular, but yeah.
I think everyone in the game and then everyone that I ever talked to about Xenu.
I mean, yeah, fair enough.
Peer reviewed.
So yeah, Izzy, if you know, just for a summary, why don't you just like describe Xenu and all of like the regular features that she has that don't make any alarm bells in anyone's head ring that just say gender over and over again.
Okay, so the original like session 1 version of Xenu was she was this robotic creature that was humanoid, had really a lack of distinguishing features, like for the most part, other than having the little tear lines on her face. And she had no neck. Well, she had no, like, covering over her neck. It was just exposed machinery. And same thing with her belly. And she wore a scarf and a cloak to cover herself, and also, thigh-high boots.
Yeah, when you posted like the really early Xenu art that you had drawn, I saw those thigh highs and I was like, "Oh, trans."
God, that early.
Yeah. And then Xenu got cat ears and I was like, "Oh yeah, I was sure before, but now it's 100%."
Yeah, what was it? She got the neck covering and cat ears, and I think shortly afterwards is when she cut off the boots and exposed what her legs actually looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So she did have digitigrade legs.
And that's pretty transgender, if you ask me.
Yeah, it sounds super trans. I'm sorry to say.
And speaking aside from like the aesthetic angle, like Xenu, the reason Xenu to me was like immediately screamed trans metaphor is just like her relationship with her body, like the fact that she just like doesn't feel anything through it. That sort of like that sort of sense of alienation and like dissociation, like I think really, really like resonates with my experience of like gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, certainly this is a trans character, and the person playing her is also trans. Even though we had, like, to that point, we had never discussed it, and it was a while before we ever did.
Yeah, God, so many fucking signs there. And then, like, one of her big character moments was fucking up her body so much that most of it had to be replaced or altered. And then she did feel afterwards.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure I've made this joke on the podcast before, but, like, literally, like, as, I think almost as soon as I, like, knew what your plans were for that session, I was like, oh, Xenu get gender confirmation surgery.
I'm so happy for her.
There is something to be said about, like, dipping into transhumanism, and if you're doing it in, like, a way that's, like, not completely fucked up. It can come across as being like a real life trans metaphor, but it doesn't have to. But the fact that you like look back and see it and you're like, oh, that actually makes sense for me also. That is something. I think there's something to be said about that.
So, some of the things that we've said for Xenu in the last couple minutes are not really applicable to me.
Right, you're not a fucking robot, first of all. You don't have robotic parts.
I'm over here giving you a look through the microphone.
Much to your chagrin, you don't have robotic parts.
Oh, no, that sounds fucked up to me.
Does it? Or
yes.
Does it sound cool as hell?
Both.
I think a little bit of robotic would be cool.
I mean,
just a
both
tiny
can
bit.
be true.
And I'm not saying that, like, I'm saying you looked at it and you're like, oh, she kind of is. And then later you're like, oh, I relate to her that I made. Oh, this is part of the reason I do. You don't have to be like, I'm Xenu.
No, but the way I relate to Xenu is not in the trans metaphor way. It's very confusing. For everyone that I talk to about this.
Yes, I'm confused. Please explain.
Oh, like the way I relate, like I put a lot of myself into Xenu, but the transhumanism angle was just because I thought transhumanism and how fucked up it can be was neat.
Yeah, and that's because you're trans.
Yeah.
So I should maybe I should step in for a moment. And like talk about some stuff here.
Yeah, so
because I think
we can come back to this in a minute.
I think it's relevant. So I've talked about my experience with like furry stuff in the furry episode. But I also have liked monsters since I knew what a monster was, and that's kind of connected to that, and that's connected to being trans, because not because not just because I'm a monster or anything, but it's like, oh cool, this shit's cool, and it's kind of, I can do fucked up extreme stuff with it, and because I'm doing these fucked up things with it that are cool, and like maybe they can overcome it, or maybe they can embrace it, or maybe they can't, and that's okay, and that has its own like place and like my stories, and like I think a lot of what I do with like monsterhood and monsters is maybe what like you might do with transhumanist stuff, right? Like you're like, I can do really cool, horrible stuff to these guys. And I'm not this guy. Like, I'm not a fucking beast. But I, there's a lot of stuff also, like, looking back at things and being like, I can recontextualize it in what it means now as a trans person. But it is, like, I was not, like, consciously thinking about that, and there's gonna be, even if someone had like the same experience as I did, might not ever be like, oh, I'm trans, but like they're more like, I was willing to look back and be like, oh, okay, now that I know I'm trans, looking back at this stuff, it makes sense. And I think like you don't have to look back at Xenu and be like, oh, this makes sense, but you can.
Oh no, I fully agree that it makes sense, but like my relationship with her is more in certain ways, like in ways other than what we've talked about. She was a little bit of a self-insert in a in kind of a bad way. like in a very, very negative, I must be punished type way.
Which is valid.
I think it's not unusual to hear that, yeah. And not even in like, I guess we're not like trying to force like this is trans metaphor, but it's more just like, oh, you're punishing Xena, you're punishing this metaphor. Like that is part.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense, and I think like, yeah, I don't know.
That's entirely possible, but if that is part of it, it's something that I have not accepted as true.
Okay, yeah.
Fair enough,
That is so valid. Like, I've talked about my OC before, like Skylar, who used to look completely different, but was one of my first OCs that went through the body horrors. Back when I was drawing, and they got these things happen to their body, and then once I came out and we started this podcast, I was like, oh, I should give this OC a rebrand that is more empowering to who I feel he is than the part of me that I hated before. So I guess in a way you can leave them as is. Like, Lens definitely is not ever getting a rebrand. He just gets to stay the weird eyeball man. But Skylar got... I'm way nicer to Skylar now, and he got a way nicer design. And I feel like it's improved. I don't really think about the old design a lot, even though it's what he started out as. That's sort of the transition that character went through. And not all characters have to have that. But I think it's valid to say, oh, I think this character as is does not reflect me. But if I do a little change with things that I've discovered later, it can become another self-insert in its own way. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. I think it's funny because, you know, I role-played when I was younger, and a lot of times you would look at, like, anime, cartoons, whatever, like, a lot of times I was like, oh, you know, the guy characters tend to be cooler, until I saw, like, Avatar: The Last Airbender and was like, oh, cool, Toph and Katara are cool, but, you know, like, if you're looking at a lot of stuff, like, especially that, like, shonen vibes kind of stuff.
I was just about to say, if you're a Naruto fan, you probably think you hate women. But it's just...
Yeah.
It's just a problem of the genre. It's not you, it's the genre. There's good women out there as well.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, I didn't know that. I was a child. I was like, I'm just watching a thing and this is cool.
I was the same, though. It was all male characters. But for a part, it was also like you said, the self-hate I was projecting. Because now that I've accepted more of myself, I make a lot more female OCs, and I like a lot more of the female characters that I see on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Still not gonna cosplay them, though.
I'll even, like, it took me a while to be like, oh, I can just, like, roleplay. And I can roleplay women that aren't just, like, tomboys. Because the first time I ever played, like, a roleplay game was in, like, high school. And I was like, everyone else is being girl characters. I guess I can, too. But, like, she's gonna be a tomboy, I guess. Fuck. And, like, yeah, I still play. A lot of times now I'm just like, oh, I can play whatever gender, and that's cool. And, like, that's... It's exciting. Like, it's exciting that I can play characters that aren't me. Or if they are similar to me, they can have, you know, different aspects of me showing. And it can be tied to gender, but doesn't have to be. And that's, like, cool. And, yeah, I don't know.
You know, it makes a lot of sense. Back when I started role-playing, all my characters were Ace, because I'd been out of the closet as Ace for a while at that time. So that was the defining feature of all my characters. Definitely Ace. They were not fucking at all. No one was allowed to get anywhere near romantically. And then the more comfortable I got with it, the more I could be like, oh, you know what? This character does in fact like that other character. I don't have to 100% understand or identify with the character that I'm playing. I can just wing it. I can fake some romance. I could not. People had to help me, but I got there in the end. And yeah, because we've been talking a lot about gender, but for me, sexuality is also one that appears a lot in my OCs. And where for gender, I do have a mix of gender, even though most of them are like, I say most, all of them are some sort of trans, but they're all ace. They're all 100% ace. I cannot think of a single of my characters except the mice. The mice fuck, but everybody else does not.
Oh, nice callback too.
Yeah, and I think beyond the role playing aspect of it, it's nice just to have like trans asexual characters, because like we're never gonna see them anywhere else. They don't make those. They don't build them.
Yeah, raise your hand if when you came out of the closet the first time you were like, this is it. This is all I can ever publicly say, because you only get to have one diversity point. That's what TV told me.
Oh boy.
So true.
You're only allowed to have one.
You're only allowed to have one. Oh, glad I left that behind. Way happier.
Yeah.
If you're worried about characters having too few diversity points, let me tell you about the funny Blizzard game of Overwatch, where the characters have been...
Oh no!
where the characters have been scored... have had their diversity scores, it's stupid.
They quantified diversity.
They sure did.
Let's go quantify.
Diversity points? How about diversity letter grades? How about a diversity spider graph?
God. Yeah. So on like the ace and arrow type thing, Xenu was definitely arrow ace from the very beginning, and like they even came up in a session. But ironically, I did not understand what ace was at the time. And so I would not have considered myself ace, like I do now, but I would not have considered myself ace at the time that occurred. So that's just an extra interesting wrinkle in this whole situation.
Yeah, and I think it, like, I guess, to go like for sexuality stuff, like, I mean, like I was saying, I started with like making male characters that are attracted to male characters, both canon and original characters. And even before that, though, like I was making, like, I would make hints about like my guy characters being like into both, or being like, oh, maybe, you know, like, oh, and like, you know, making a gay joke without making a gay joke, but like that was the time period, you know. But I felt, I was like, why can't I do this with my women? Why am I feeling weird about that? And again, it's because I had a lot of like very incorrect, like, just thoughts of what being a woman attracted to other women was, you know, like I had all these like incorrect notions, and it was just like weird. And a lot of it had to do with like an assumption about like, oh, women are dramatic or whatever stupid bullshit people like about it. But it's like, no, those are fucking that's like cartoon characters doing cartoon character shit. Like, of course, they're gonna like be over the top about it. And there's like insecurity within myself that didn't help, you know? So I'm always like fucking stoked when like, yeah, I don't know. It's weird, right? Like a lot of times it's like, oh, there's like jokes about like, oh, the weird girls become trans, and I'm like, yes and no. Like, yes, that a lot of times they are being weird in middle and high school because their gender is fucky, but sometimes they're just weird girls, and like that's okay too.
I'm saying over here, realizing I have no idea how old I was when I learned that trans people exist.
Yeah.
I definitely
but I'm
remember how old I was the first time I talked to a trans person. Was like, oh my god, these people are real.
I didn't even know that was a thing. Until I'm not sure if I was in my 20s or my 30s.
Yeah, I mean, I was in high school, I think, but I didn't know any trans people in my high school. I just like found out about it. And I found out like, oh, some people just are like that, I guess. I don't know. And then I was like, can I be like that? And then I found the wrong article to be like, no, you can't.
Oh no.
Because you're fucking wrong about it.
I once helped out at a Pride event, and one of the other people that was helping out turned out to be trans. And I disliked that person so much, and it took me forever to figure out that is called jealousy.
Oh no.
I was so jealous that they got to be out there and be themselves, whereas I was still performing at that point. I just didn't realize it. And in retrospect, I really wish I could find that person again and be like, I'm so fucking sorry. I am so sorry. It's not that I was mean, but I was not nice to that person. I did not go out of my way to talk to them or anything.
Aww.
I'm really, in retrospect, I was just so jealous.
Finding out I liked women helped me figure out I was trans. Actually.
Honestly, finding out I was asexual helped me figure out that I was non-binary, so...
Oh, it made it more difficult for me, because I was like, do I have problems with my gender? Or do I dislike the fact that I have things that are considered sexy? And it took me a very long time to be like, no, it's not how other people perceive me. It is how I experience myself that is the problem. And that is called gender.
Yeah.
Oh, can I go back to my earlier joke real quick to clarify? Because I don't know if this got across. But when I joked that y'all said I was trans beforehand, like, I hadn't even considered that I might be trans at that point in time.
Yeah.
Like that's actually one of the things that made me go, huh. If they're all thinking of it, why?
That is so valid.
And then you're like, oh, I guess I could start thinking about it. And then you fell into a rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all something that I don't think I've ever told anyone. But, like, when I was a tiny child, I didn't get my first haircut until, like, probably I was, like, 4 or 5 or something. So when I was little, I had long golden curls, and I was constantly confused for being a girl. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of liked it.
Right.
Sometimes it be like that.
It's always interesting to think about, like, in the past, you're like, is this tied to that? And like,
Mhm.
yeah, sometimes it
Yeah.
really is just like that. Sometimes you really do just wear like your fucking parents' clothes of the opposite whatever,
Mhm.
and you're like, oh shit, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's fucking signs.
And sometimes there's not.
The rage I felt when I became a teen, and unfortunately the body starts to change, because apparently that happens when you're a teenager. I didn't sign up for
no.
that shit.
Uh-huh.
And I had to buy my own clothes instead of getting my brother's hand-me-downs. And it turned out girl clothes, sometimes good, oftentimes not good. Bad.
Mm-hmm.
I would say horrible. Yeah, I think that was part of why it was so hard to figure out the gender thing. Because, like, is it the clothes? In part, yeah, because women's clothes quality, not good, not great. But also, like, the idea that I had to get different clothes was not great for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the thing, right? Like you went beyond like, oh, I'm not just like kind of a tomboy where I like to wear guys' clothes. You're like, oh, there's more here.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mhm.
different stuff going on here. And I think that's interesting. Like, yeah, it reflected in I mean, it's funny, right? Like, part of the reason. Oh my god, I just got like this flashback. Holy shit.
Oh boy.
No, so someone made a fanfic. It was like a short, like, silly fanfic about like the Powerpuff Girls and how Bubbles, you know, the blonde, like, girly
Mhm.
one, transitioned to Mal
Uh-huh.
and was
Yeah.
still like she was like, he was very the same. Like, he still acted very similarly.
Uh-huh.
And that was kind of like,
Classic bimbo to himbo transition.
yeah, I was like, oh my god, I can just. And Bubbles was a lot of times. I'm blonde and blue eyed, right? Like, and I'm kind of like airheaded, goofy. I love my stuffed animals, you know. So like, I would identify a lot with Bubbles as a kid, and then I was like, oh, I don't have to give that stuff up. Like, in fact, I shouldn't, because that's some like toxic shit.
Hell yeah.
And it was just like funny to be like a silly fanfic of a cartoon of my childhood that made me go, oh, I can do that. Like, it wasn't the first or the last thing, right, that made me, but it really sticks out in my head because it was.
You do
like,
get to say that Bubbles was a role model in your transitioning.
Most excellent.
And
That
that's
is-
so fucking
It's
funny.
amazing. I love that. So good.
I have so
Uh-huh.
many little blonde bitches that probably roles in my life, like Roxas and shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We love a fucking accidental metaphor for othering in Kingdom Hearts because they're nobodies or whatever the fuck, you know? I mean, a lot of my, like, figuring that stuff out had more to do with, like, media and canon characters and stuff more than, like, my own stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we've, you know, I can claim them as mine, I guess, but, like, yeah, it's hard to really pinpoint one guy, although I might have to talk about my time in the Hitalia fandom too, which is troubling.
Oh no.
You've teased about that time so many times. One day you will have to do it.
I mean, I can briefly go into the fact that, like, there's a lot of problems with it, but one of the very interesting and probably less problematic parts of it, but it's still a problem, is that a vast majority of the characters are men. And that's just how anime is sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also very, like, feminine men that I found attractive as a high schooler. And was like, what if these countries kissed?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was role playing as, like, that was one of the things I roleplayed as a male character, and it wasn't just like tabletop RPG. It was like forum roleplay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
It's making me think about like in those really cliche anime that make you like go, it's gender, but you didn't realize it at the time. And I'm thinking about James from Pokemon.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
James and Jesse did a lot for me. Both of them, just genuinely, both of them have done a lot for me as a person. I don't agree with their methods, but I do agree with their choices of sometimes just switching it up.
Yeah, I was never a Pokemon kid. I've seen maybe a couple episodes of the anime, but everything I've seen and heard has been like, I kind of wish I had been.
When I found out what gay was, I was like, oh, James is gay. Why would he be with Jesse? Why do people ship them? And then now, big brain, I'm like, oh, they're T for T.
Of course they're T for T.
I'm like, okay, this makes way more sense now as an adult.
Now I'm just remembering, like, that Maddie Blaustein was inspired to transition by the one Meowth episode where Meowth learns to talk.
That's so good.
A really good episode.
That's so cute, dude. I don't know if I knew that. Like, I knew that's so fucking good. I did not know
it's really good.
That episode, like, wow. It's so funny, like, to hear about famous and semi-famous people, like, figuring out, like, they're trans by the work they're doing, because this, you hear about.
I still remember where I found that article. I'll send you a link later.
Yeah, because I think one of the people who played in that like Flag Means Death show, Our Flag Means Death, like I think they played as like a character that ended up being non-binary, and then like the actor came out as non-binary, and like. I think that's funny. They're like, oh, yeah.
A similar thing with Nimona, that comic.
Yeah.
Where the author was like, I'm not non-binary. And then a whole while later, they were like, huh.
Oh, maybe.
Characters are such a great way to explore things about yourself. And sometimes you make a character and you're like, no, definitely not me. But they sure exist now.
Yeah, from what I understand, like the sort of trans allegory stuff in Nimona was like unintentional, and then like when they went back and did the movie, N.D. Stevenson was just like, oh yeah, let's make it explicit this time.
How do you make such a perfect comic unintentionally?
It's the Izzy route.
Yeah.
Izzy route, yeah.
So now that we're all geniuses who have perfect understandings of our gender and sexualities and will never have confusing feelings again.
Don't say that. I know you're joking, but I'm also just like, I already have that feeling all the time.
Yeah, how does that influence like the type of characters we play? I know like I always talked about like, always making my characters asexual and trans, cuz just like that's what I find fun to play, and that's kind of like the characters I want to see like being around in the world and interacting with others. And yeah, like I guess a specific example of like how that influences a character would be Snake. And like it basically almost never comes up that they're asexual in the actual campaign, but it's something that I think like does really influence the character, because like the reason that like they're not like, I mean, we all know Snake. They're gay as hell and like super flamboyant about it. But like you don't really see them with like a lot of gay friends, and like the reason that they're not like, that they're not like really engaged with like the local queer community like is because they're asexual, and like a lot of times like queer spaces can be like so super focused on like the sexual part of it. So yeah, that's why they kind of fell in with like weirdo conspiracy theorist groups instead of like, that's where, that's why they found their community with like weirdos instead of instead of queer people, like because they have that sort of difference to them, which kind of made them feel like more isolated in those spaces.
If y'all don't mind, let me go last on this part.
Yeah, sure thing.
Well, I like to play characters that, or I like to make characters. I mean, I kind of talked about this, that I like to make monsters and stuff, but like, even if I'm just making, like, if I'm able to play a non-human, I will a lot of times, and if I can't, like, that's okay. Like, I'll still play humans, but there'll still be something like, oh, they're non-binary, and like, I would say the vast majority of my characters are trans in some way, or come out as trans now that I've made them, and like, I have a hard time playing characters that aren't like bi, but like I've done it, but a lot of times I just am like, well, yeah, I have an easier time writing like in my stories or like my NPCs characters that aren't bi, but like if I'm playing a character, a lot of times I'm like, but I want all the options I can because I think it's fun. I think it's funny.
Twice as many opportunities to be a disaster.
Yeah. I love to play as a disaster bisexual because I am a disaster bisexual.
Hooray.
Play
It's so valid.
all these, pan and queer and whatever. I use all these terms, but
it's the best way to be.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
It's also like, I've noticed, like, even if I'm playing characters, like, a lot of times I'll play characters that are really, like, I don't know if this has anything to do with gender stuff, but characters that are either very small or very tall. And I was like,
that's gender.
Maybe that's gender. Because I like to play, like, gnomes that are, like, 3 foot tall, and then I like to play Big Trouble, who's, like, what did I say, like 7? We just didn't want to make them too tall so they could actually fit into buildings, kind of thing,
That is an important thing to think about. Practical tallness.
And now Trouble is technically bigger.
Yeah, I don't think I have any characters who are between like 4 feet and 6 feet, so...
How tall is Snake?
Snake's like 6'1", 6'2". I'm pretty sure I said they were like a little over 6 foot.
They're a little on the tall side, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I hear a man say 6 foot, and, well, Snake's a they. So I just automatically in my mind subtract a few inches.
That's fair.
I mean, technically Snake's like 40 feet, but
What if I just started trying to tell people I'm 6 foot? Like, I'm 5'5" at best.
No, you're 6 foot. You just told us.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm 6
believe
foot.
it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
that's how we know you fully transitioned.
No, I'm not binary. No, I can't believe this. That's my toxic male trait, is that I say I'm 6 foot.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I should start lying about my height more. I'm gonna go next. For me, I'm not sure if it's entirely gendered, but I've always felt like being ace, being arrow, and the way that I am trans are not super visible to people. They don't stand out. You don't look at me, but you look at me and think something's wrong with that person. But you don't look at me and you say ace, arrow, trans. It's not, maybe the trans one a little bit, actually, but you don't, it's not super noticeable. So I wonder if that's the reason why a lot of my characters tend to have something that make them stand out visually from whatever else is happening in that campaign or that world. Like if I'm playing with a group that is all humans, then my human is going to be either really tall or really small or have some kind of deformity that makes it stand out. When I play mouse guard, my mice has a little, like my mouse tend to be like the biggest mouse you've ever seen, or they've got a little, they wear a stupid little hat every single day of their life. You can tell it by that. And then I had Lens, who has way too many eyes. And I have Scarler, who's just naked all the time. Like, all my characters have something that even within the normal world in which they were created, people would be like, what's going on over there? And it's not necessarily linked to gender, except for where I wish there was something about me that made people really look at me and say, maybe we should not try to assume what's going on over there, because we'll be wrong.
The ace hat. They're wearing the ace hat.
The ace hat. I'm this close to just buying stupid... I don't like pins that say ace, arrow, he, him, they, them, she, her. I get why people use them. I don't genuinely like them that much.
Yeah.
But I'm very close to buying some. Because, it would make my life easier in some ways if I just had them on me and people would not assume certain things.
Yeah, it gets...
Hello, people, I'm not one of you. Please leave me alone.
It gets complicated, especially if you're like, I'm not feeling these pronouns this day, and then you're like, ugh. And sometimes it feels corny, right? Like, it feels very corny sometimes to just be like, yeah, these are my pronouns.
A bit over the top, but a little bit of dating this episode. Today I spent an entire day in a very public place where I had to talk to a lot of people, and I realized like some other people did have the pins, and it did make the conversation a little easier because you could skip that first part of the conversation where you gotta be like, hello, who are you? And what are your pronouns? Because I could just be like, oh, she, they. Easy. I know what to do from this point. So maybe in certain settings I will get myself some pins.
I do have a they them shirt, and it's in like it's in the gender queer colors.
Nice.
Are nice, but unfortunately a lot of like TERFs have been trying to use the gender queer colors for themselves, and it's very sad.
Oh no.
I was wearing my purple.
The green is
mushroom
different,
boots.
I guess. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just going to say I was wearing my purple mushroom boots, so I don't know how people didn't pick up on the they them in that. But yeah.
I'm wearing my they them boots.
Even there's claims something like, no, they can't have this.
I don't remember why, and I don't really care enough to figure out why, but yeah, for a while I was seeing like the green, white, and purple like in like Twitter stuff, and I was like, this sucks. Fuck you.
Well, if they want to walk around with a genderqueer flag on them, then maybe they shouldn't be TERFs.
So true. I do like to give my characters like the trans colors just because I like the color combination of pink and blue and white and stuff.
It's
like
so valid. I made purple my whole
palette.
personality.
Yeah. Trans colors are very good colors, is the thing.
They're pretty.
me looking at Sylveon.
You know what's sad for me? I think the bi-colors are the best the best queer flag out there, and I cannot claim them because I am in no possible way. But I can't. There's no way for me to be that. But
That's how I feel about the ace flag, dude.
it is the best colors.
Fuck, I love the ace flag colors, but I'm just like not. Ace.
This is some bi-ace solidarity going on.
I'm like, these are the colors of emo kids. I love this. Are you joking? Purple, black, white, gray. Oh, so good.
It's good shit, unfortunately. By which I mean fortunately.
It is good, but I wish the ace black had a little bit more contrast.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you pair it with an arrow,
Yeah.
arrow flag, then you get a couple shades of green in there.
You gotta combine it.
True.
I tend to just take the trans flag, actually. Even though I did make purple my entire personality. I have a lot of purple things. Don't have a lot of pink and blue things, but I wish I had more because I do like that flag visually.
I wish I liked the non-binary one more. I like it well enough, but it's just like tough with yellow. I have a hard time.
Yellow is a difficult color to love sometimes. I'm very sorry to the yellow lovers out there. It's not always easy for me to love yellow.
It's gotta be like a less saturated yellow. Like, Renamon wears the non-binary colors extremely well.
Yeah.
But, like, those are like specific saturations of those colors, you know?
Yeah. Renamon wears them extremely well, and no one else does, unfortunately.
God, if only we could have that Renamon energy.
So true.
I'm saying that while my icon on Discord is the non-binary flag.
I'm making a yellow-coded cosplay right now, so I better start liking the color soon.
Did Izzy want to talk about character?
I want to talk about some shit. Yeah.
Let's go.
So one thing I've realized is that after much self-discovery, so not counting like any filler characters that I made as GM or anything, I'm gonna say that oddly enough, Hyperpop is my first male character who is not just outright villainous. And that's interesting.
That is interesting, yeah.
That's so funny.
When I created Jolene, she was intentionally supposed to be a trans allegory. Because Xenu was accidental. God. Her and Gal hooked up and became an item mainly because all the players in that game were joking about them being roommates.
They were roommates literal, and then we were like, oh, they're roommates?
Yes. You especially, Morg.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's like, you know what? We got one tall and one small, and that's a very good combination. Also, like, their personalities blended well too. So I was like, you know what? It just makes sense. And then now I do want to talk because the second ESO campaign was 20 years after the original one. And so during that time, we did get to check in on Xenu 20 years later. And there was a big moment for her off screen during the second half of the campaign where she basically got an all new body for reals. And one of the things that went into that was a large reason why she ended up with that completely different body was because she had had accepted herself at that point, in a lot of ways. So that was me actually trying to be a good writer.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the unhinged part.
Oh boy.
Hey, this affects you. Is that why you're saying oh boy?
I think I know what you mean when you say unhinged part.
Yeah. So, Gilly fucked off to outer space.
They sure did. They up and left.
Yeah, and Xenu and Gilly had a fight over it.
Oh no.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and then Xenu spent a year without Gilly. But she did embrace other friendships and such.
That's good. Good for her.
Good for her.
She needed to.
That's very helpful.
Good for her.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
But also she probably took some wrong lessons from some of the information she was getting from her friends.
You can't win them all.
Yeah. So I know that Morg was there for this, but I think this might just be info for Katra. When Gilly finally made it back to ESO, Xenu proposed to them.
Yeah, they sure did.
Oh
Gilly said no.
Oh my god! Why do you keep throwing all? You keep hurting me with these.
Gilly said no, but has a good reason, we promise.
Yeah.
Is it really though? Is it a good reason?
I'll let you explain Gilly's reason, and then I'll say Xenu's perspective on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I actually put a lot of thought into this. Like, I kind of considered, like, what marriage means in halfling society, and, like, halflings kind of, like, half copied the concept from humans, but the way they did it, it's a lot more, like, kind of, sort of, like, fluid and open and impermanent, so, like, if you're married to someone, like, you're probably, like, sharing a house with them, probably, like, sharing some child-rearing duties. There's, like, probably a romantic, like, implication, in there. But also, like, it's not really a legal status or anything, so you can just, like, get unmarried as long as, both people agree to it. And, like, most, depending on, like, geographically and, like, sort of culturally where they are, like, usually marriages are, like, super polyamorous, so just, like, very kind of different cultural ideas of marriage going on, and, like, kind of a big thing was just, like, Xenu being like, what does married mean? What does Xenu think it means? And, like, yeah, but kind of ultimately it's, like, Xenu doesn't, they have, like, a very special and important relationship, and they both mean a whole lot to each other, but, Gilly's thinking, and my thinking also is, well, that it doesn't really need to be a marriage, though,
Mm-hmm.
It can be its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is good.
Yeah, and then from Xenu's perspective, which, as we were going through this, that, like, there was the moment where I realized, wait, holy shit, this is a Xenu with, like, a support network, and she is gonna react to things completely different than how she would have before.
Uh-huh.
Which was very interesting in the moment. But yeah, Xenu is very much Arrow Ace. So for her, the whole reason for the proposal was just a way of saying, hey, I want you to know how much you mean to me. And like the things that Gilly said in response to that were all the things that mattered to her, and she didn't give a fuck about what the actual answer was once they started talking. So it was very nice and very cute. I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
It was a good scene.
In some ways, I mean, it's not quite the same, but in some ways it sounded like they kind of already had a lot of the halfling marriage stuff kind of there already, especially if they end up with the kid. Which they might. Shrug.
That's kind of independent of that, and it's an adult child, so it's just more than anything, it's a, hey, you want my name?
Yeah. And Gilly's like, I don't want anyone's name. I'm Gilly.
Yeah.
I already have a name. What do you mean?
Gilly already had to fucking fight for the fact that they kept their name and weren't just like the Demon Lord for the rest of their fucking life.
Oh, yeah. But no, before things are over, most likely Xenu adopts Gal. And so Gal would get a last name that way.
Aw.
Yeah.
I guess, if we're talking about Fellowship real quick, even when I made a non-binary character, they still went through an arc where they changed their body and became... They were non-binary and became more non-binary. Kind of. They became an angel, it's fine. So I can't stop it. Even when I start off being like, yeah, no gender, I still fucking do a trans allegory. It's fine.
No. Yeah. And then they really fucking became an angel at the end.
Yes. But also they were disaster bisexual because they tried to hit on their, like, childhood friend, Arla, and it didn't work. But they were under duress, to be fair.
A lot of your, I don't want to accuse you guys of anything, but like a lot of the romances in your campaign seem to not be going all that well.
Well, Dan's characters are great and perfect, and they love each other.
Thank God for Dan.
We've never had a romance between, you know, two characters played by different players.
Yeah. Now, I do want to say, ESO 2's ultimate big bad, the final blow was struck through the sheer power of gay love.
That's right.
I mean, to be clear, I cannot judge you. I've role-played a romance with another player character once, and that character died horrifyingly.
To be completely fair, I also, like, due to, like, the circumstances being kind of, like, extreme emotions due to magics, I didn't, like, I didn't come forward and be like, hey, Patrick, do you want to do this? I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this and see what happens, because I think this is what... I think it makes sense for her to reject me, or not, either way. And then I was rejected, and I was like... I would say, if you're role-playing with other player characters, you should probably talk to them first if you actually want to go somewhere with them.
Yeah, I didn't realize y'all hadn't talked it through in advance.
Incredible.
And then I saw the moment to, like, force the issue because, like, the hints had occurred. So I was like, oh, this would be a good moment where it would make sense to force that issue to come to light. And then it just kind of was a disaster.
I went through with it, though. Like, I could have just been like, I'm not going to. But I was like, no, I think this is funny, and I think this is an interesting character moment.
I think it's good that
Yeah.
it was a disaster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I hate to be like I think it's good it's a disaster because I do want Trouble to be happy, but like I think it worked out and like it's more like friendship isn't lesser, it's just different, and I think that's an important lesson to have.
Friendship kicks ass is the thing.
Yeah.
Friendship is so good.
And they almost ruined their friendship because of that, but like just because it was at a very bad moment. It's very bad.
Oh, I felt terrible after causing that.
It was not your fault at all. I like I said, I could have been like, no, I didn't talk about this. But I was like, no, I want to see what happens. And we also found out that Arla like prefers butchier women, and that's fine. Treble is not butch enough for her.
Wow.
I know.
Maybe Treble should go through some transformations again.
I was like, I know. They're like not. That's
Have you seen the boots that Treble is wearing?
Yes.
Come on. How do you get butcher than that?
I know. That's what I was saying. I was like, damn. But that's that's for when Pat is on to talk about Arla and stuff, I think. We do have to have him on to talk about that and talk more about the Shattered and all that stuff.
Yeah, Celica.
Yeah. Well, I said Elfin and then I think I mumbled Elfin, but yeah. Silica and Arla and stuff. But I think that's all I have. I could probably talk forever about like the weird queerness of my characters, intentional and not intentional.
Yeah, there's a lot I could say about Vortex. There's a lot I could say about like Gilly and halflings in general. There's a lot I could say about fucking M the Bun,
Vortex, who isn't ace, but also never ended up with anyone.
Yeah, no, I decided that, Vortex would be an allo character, and then just, like, intentionally made her as undateable as possible.
Vortex ended up with Yamcha.
That's true. That's so true.
That's so true. She's just like me for real.
Also, something I don't think I've ever said about Visvians, like, they totally reproduce asexually and don't have a concept of romance in their society, so...
I mean, once again...
I don't know why Vortex is like that. It makes zero sense for her to be allo in any capacity, which we would understand that to mean, but she is. It's weird.
I think it's cool, though, because it's almost like...
She's a fucking freak.
It's like it was kind of like what Quattro was saying about, like, making characters that are kind of, like, freaks within their own societies, too. Like, like, I think Vortex is very much that. Like,
yeah.
And, like, I think, like, a lot of our characters are like that. Like, even if it's not, like, as extreme as, this blob is looking like a lady and becoming, like, trying to be human and stuff, kind of.
We love a nonconformist.
So true.
Yeah, also, like, that's also kind of why, like, that also kind of applies to, like, how Vortex is a trans character, because, like, once again, like, the Visvians, the alien slime race that she comes from, like, they don't have fucking binary sex characteristics. They're all just fucking asexual slimes, like, when she, like, decided to present herself as humanoid, like, the choice to, like, be a slime girl as opposed to anything else was, like, very deliberate. So, there's some gender going on there.
I like that it's, like, half a joke and half not, because, like, the idea of playing a slime girl, like, that sounds like a funny joke, but it's also, like, extremely intentional.
Yeah. She just, like, straight up decided to, like, become a humanoid and was like, what type of humanoid? I think I'll go with girl.
What if I'm Catgirl, though?
What if?
Catgirl streamer? Vortex? God.
We are absolutely screwed if Vortex and Xenu ever hang out.
I want to see it so bad. Now that you say it, I want to see it so bad.
We love a good disaster.
So one idea I had for future one shots was just a night at the anime theater where we could revisit our existing ISO characters just hanging out at Same's anime theater.
Yes. Yes.
Also, I think seeing Vortex and Xenu interaction would be funny because even though Gilly turned down the proposal, Vortex is only ever going to refer to Xenu exclusively as Gilly's hot robot wife. I did make that joke and it is canon. I'm sticking with it.
Oh, God. Xenu's just gonna be, like, super proud of that, then.
What is Gilly to Xenu?
Gilly's just Gilly.
Gilly's just Gilly. It's so true. I was like, hot.
No, it's Gilly is Kelly. But, like, I was gonna start off this episode jokingly saying that Gilly's so hot, they turned me gay. But that would have just been to break Emmy's mind.
Yeah, it's just a funny little joke to piss me off.
Uh-huh. I'm sorry.
You're good. Gilly's not hot. You can't say that. It's illegal.
No, but Gilly is, like, very cuddleable.
That's true. I'll give you that.
Ooh. It sounded like you said cuddleable, so I said
I also understood
Cuddleable.
I was also so close to be like, ooh.
Ooh.
I'm glad you also.
Anyway, I just realized we've been going on for a while. I just looked at the time and it's long.
Oops.
Should we wrap up?
Yes.
Maybe wrap up. I was going to say a long day, but I've just had a very long weekend. I might need some sleep.
Yeah, get them Z's.
Get them Z's.
And if you want to talk about your queer character,
yeah, come by our Discord. It's in the show notes.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
In what order do we usually do this?
No order.
You go first, because you spoke first.
Oh. You can find me on the Discord or on Tumblr, where I am, matchroomcouchin.tumblr.com. And since I did a cosplay thing today, I will say, hey, you can also find me on Instagram at Skatra_cosplay.
Yay.
Yay.
I already made Izzy plug the Discord, which is where the only place you can find her, so.
Hi, I'm Izzy, and you can find me sneaking up behind you right now.
Oh no.
I love having friends. It's fine.
I'm Emery. You can find me on a funny little podcast called We Rate Queerbait, the podcast where we explore the blurry line between homie and homo, and a podcast where if you ever look at a fictional character and say, you know, I think that's some gay shit. I think this is a character that I would write yaoi about.
If you say it like that, it's war flashbacks almost.
I mean, I did say the word yaoi in the beginning.
I know, and I've
right.
had it on my mind ever since you did. The Sasunaru is coming back.
It's boys love, baby.
If you're a funny little fujoshi that, you know, definitely doesn't have, like, any big impending thoughts about gender that they're trying to avoid, go listen to We Rate Queerbait, and we'll talk about funny gay boys.
It's okay, I'm not fetishizing them. I am them. I'm him.
It's okay.
It's fine.
I'm also on for Affinity with the username Space Robot. I got a gallery there. No commissions right now because I'm tired. I'm also on an upcoming audio drama pilot.
Yeah.
Details forthcoming.
Yay.
We are waiting. We are patiently waiting for your podcast's pilot.
Hey, this is Emery from the future saying, wait no longer. Go to lydiadisappears.com and hear that thing. Right now. Do it.
Sorry, I interrupted you, and now I'm lost. What am I supposed to talk about? I'm Morg. You can find me at Haunting the Morgue almost everywhere. Co-host it's Gengar instead, though, and you can also find me on the Sonic Hustle, a complete and holistic Sonic lore podcast. You can find me in the Discord and make fun of me for being a stereotype. No. You can find this podcast also. You can find our social media at Check Out This Guy on Tumblr and co-host. All one word, Check Out This Guy. And you can find the episodes of this on noisepace.xyz with lots of other good podcasts.
There sure are.
I'm loving it. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. That's not the tagline. I'm sorry.
No, they'd get sued if they used that one.
And now we're closing the gay book.
Yeah, I'm taking. I'm gonna take my little guys who may or may not be gender. We all know they are. I'm gonna chuck them into bed, and I'm opting out.
Good night. Have good dreams of gender.
Peace.
Let the gender keep you warm.
Wow.